Okay, here's recording.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Data Lab here on the sportsaffiliation.com. Dennis Michelson, along with the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. It's John Bush. John, Super Bowl is in the rearview mirror. That
Yeah,
means it is full-blown data season ahead.
yeah. Oh, did I say? Yes, that is true. I'm going to do the video here. This is some early looks at the best ball for running backs, the top 24. I think at this point, there's, some of the deeper running backs, it's going to depend on position, free agencies, rookies. It gets murky, Dennis, but I thought the top 24 may be a good view for us to discuss on the data lab for people just to get a taste for the kind of metrics we're laying down here. So let me just go through it, folks. First thing I have is status. And I have, when I say rookie, that means they were rookie last year. Bucky Irvin was year two last year. So I just highlighted those, the position, the player. We'll come back to differences, diffs. The tier is basically using my metric. I put running backs into tiers. And so I sorted by ADP, not necessarily by my tiers, just here's the ADP. The 2025 year is my COM metric, which is counts over median. I've defined that on our Science of Fantasy Football website. You can see, but basically it's counting the number of weeks players were above a target median PPR score. And we're looking for consistency. And that's basically a percentage if you think about it. So Bijan was 82.4% weeks that he played above median. That's a good score. Not as good as CMC was 94%. A Shane was 93%. But and Taylor was 82. Cook 82, Chase Brown 82, Derrick Henry 82, Kerwin Williams 82, Scatterboo was 87. So those are the top, and notice they're in green. The next group are in yellow, and then we have red and then pink. So I just for color wise, the team, and then this is from the FFPC, and they use a predicted scoring points, year end points. That's just predicted fantasy points. I think that's PFP. That's what they do. It's not real. It's just somebody's projection. I don't know if it's a group projection. ComScore is by order of high to low ComScore. So the 2025 year, and I should just label that Com, Dennis. I should, I can label it that way if you want. And then here's the score. Then we don't have to worry about PS score right now, but basically that's ADP. And then the round. So the top running backs, round one, and then the ADP, and then the average ADP. And the difference is you subtract the ADP or the com score from the ADP. So Bijan is 4 minus 1, that's a plus 3. Anything too high in positive is concerning. Anything below zero is kind of a starting to be a bargain. And so the worst concern in the first two rounds is Gente. He's a plus 14. My com score had him at
Wow.
20th, Dennis, but he is sixth in ADP.
Wow.
So if you subtract 20 minus six, that's plus 14. So his com score was 64%, which is, look, that's good. It's just, is that your sixth best when I can grab Cook right next to him at 80 something? So we're talking 2, 3 more weeks of goodness. You know, if everything falls like they did, and they know we won't, right? We're all predicting and forecasting, but it's hard for me to pick him when I can pick Cook right there next
Oh,
to him.
yeah.
So that's an
Yeah.
example. So let me stop now that I've explained, Dennis, and I'll let you chew a little bit. But anyway, the best bargain, first real nice bargain is Henry is a -8. He was sixth in com last year, but he is 14th in running backs. So if you subtract 6 minus 14, that's a -8. That's good, especially when Brees Hall is a plus 15.
Wow.
So, it doesn't mean, right, we're like in blood. I'm stuck with all these. This is just, what is this, early February? This is just the beginning. But if I was doing best balls, I think I would worry about Gente and be looking to try to grab some of these bargains in the later rounds. This is planning. This is all this is. Good planning data here. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, and I think this is a great way to attack it, because one thing that I have noticed over many years of playing fantasy football, you never win your draft in the first round, but you can often lose it. And when I look at the first 3 rounds of a fantasy football draft, my idea is to navigate those 3 rounds with perfection. And what I mean by that is I want to take guys that are the safest upside guys in a draft. And if I do that, then the only thing I'm worrying about beating me in those first 3 rounds is injuries. And you can't predict injuries. You can look at a guy like Christian McCaffrey and say, he's had 3 of the last 6 seasons where he hasn't played 10 or more games. That's concerning to me. But you can also look at him and say, he was bulletproof last year. And he's had other seasons in his career where he's played a higher snap percentage and played the entire season. So injuries are impossible to predict. But what you can predict is the riskier players to take. And there's nothing wrong with Ashton Gianti or
Nope.
Omarion Hampton.
Nope.
They could be great football players in the right situation. But are they in the right situation? Ashton Gianti is playing for the Raiders, who were basically like, if I called them a dumpster fire, it would be a great insult to dumpster fires everywhere.
Goodness.
And I look at Omarion Hampton, and he's in a situation where the coach has shown us that there's going to be a split of the volume. When I'm looking at safety in the first 3 rounds at the running back position, I don't want split backfields. I want guys that are going to get a majority of the touches. And even last year, Jamar Gibbs was in less of a timeshare last year than he's ever been before. Bijan was clearly not in a timeshare. He got 360 touches. Yes, Tyler Algier came off the bench. Somebody else will come off the bench, probably snipe a few touchdowns from him. But Bijan, back-to-back seasons with 360 touches. That's a lot. So I'm feeling like he deserves to be the top dog. So I got an article out now where I took a look, and I called it way too early
Yeah.
at 2026. But in weather forecasting, when you do a model, you have the initialization. Okay. It's a snapshot of what the atmosphere is doing right now before the model run. That's what my look was. Bijan Robinson was my number one rated running back. He's deserving of that top spot. No doubt about it. Jamar Gibbs was my number two guy. But I see reasons to be concerned about him. Christian McCaffrey was my number three guy. I see reasons to be concerned about Christian McCaffrey. If you look at the MVP data for career arc, guys don't stay on the top as long as Christian McCaffrey is done. He's definitely outproduced what most running backs can. And again, notice I'm saying something negative about everybody because that's the way you need to attack a fantasy football analysis. And I love this comparison of ComScore rank to ADP. It doesn't mean you eliminate the guys with a plus
Or a minus.
or a minus.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you grab and gravitate at those guys. But what it does mean is let's look at value. And Derrick Henry is the 14th running back off the board right now. When I look at all four ways that I look at consistency, both on the 1 year and the 2 year, he's number 7. I like that.
So you would give him a -7. I would
He's
give
a
him -8. So
he's a
we're
big value
both
guy.
so both methods, two analysts saying right now that that's a good bargain. If he moves up to 9 or 10, it's less, I'm less excited, right,
Yes.
Dennis? It's like, that ice cream in the freezer, you taste it and it's freezer burn. You're less excited to go back for that second taste, right? That old bum bum. That's what you hide when your in-laws come in. They want a dessert. You pull out that old freezer burn stuff so they won't beg again, right? Those in-laws that always have their cup out and yeah, I'll take a little more of that turkey, you know, and you're supposed to cut it paper thin so you can read through the turkey slice. And they're wanting the big old hunk, big enough they could slap on their holes in their shoes and walk around. So, Dennis, you got to, down here in the South, you have your favorite in-laws and your thin in-laws, and so that's you could tell at Thanksgiving, who's who and what's what. Just watch how grandma slices the turkey. See who's the favorite and who's not. Anyway, Dennis, uh, we are looking for tasty bargains.
Yes.
Bijan is interesting. A Shane, Taylor, Cook, those are interesting picks early on. Uh, I like A Shane. Maybe he's fourth, but he might be my number two. Taylor's right there. In other words, I've got a little concern about Gibbs right now. It's February. If David Montgomery doesn't leave, let's say they re-sign him, I just feel like he could vulture enough that is he worth my number two pick? I don't know if A. Shane's going to have enough of a vulture in Jalen Wright or some or Taylor. I just feel like the range of outcomes I could get rewarded a little better, and Gibbs could be a little bit more disappointing. Not saying I wouldn't. If Gibbs is five, okay, yeah, yeah. But right now
Yes.
he's two, and
Yes.
so those are you need some metrics to use as a guide. This is not, you're not slaving. No offense to any of these so-called analysts and experts out there. They'll say, well, if you got a question, just look at my rankings and pick the highest guy. That's not what I would tell you. I would tell you, look at the various metrics that we try to put out and try to look for players that are pretty high in all of them versus some that are hit or miss on some. In other words, I'm trying to measure the floor ceiling and probabilities. That's how you should look at people's guides. And if they don't give you that, then, Dennis and I use those secret sheets. We have 4 or 5 metrics that we're looking at, and we want them all in the green if we're making a pick. We don't want them all in the maybes. We want them all plus, plus, plus.
And here's the thing, in the first 3 rounds, you can have plus, plus, plus on all of our metrics.
Yes,
As you go farther down the draft,
I understand 2 pluses and 1 minus can still be a play.
absolutely. But in the first 3 rounds, a solid strategy is to avoid the guys with more question marks. And the question mark could be for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
Robinson and Gibbs are, in my opinion, the safest 2 running backs because we know that there aren't going to be any negative changes versus what they had last year. I can make a case that Achane is the third safest because he did what he did last year, which was really solid on a team that was a disaster
Yeah.
in so many ways. They got their fired. They got the coach fired. They were so bad.
Yep.
And he was supposed to be an offensive genius. Got fired. So could we see a worse situation with that offense for Miami? Yes. That's why he's not number 1 or 2.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing is we're looking just at running backs.
Yeah, there's
And,
wide receivers.
and next in the coming weeks here on the data lab, we'll look at other positions.
Right.
And I already have a theory that I'm looking at that if I look at the top 3 tiers at running back versus wide receiver this year,
Mm-hmm.
there's 4 wide receivers, there's 7 running backs in that group. And of the running backs that are in that group, here's the intriguing thing. Cook is going in the 2nd round. Brown is going, I'm sorry, not Brown. Derrick Henry is going in the 3rd round. Those are guys that are in my top 3 tiers. I'm really thinking James Cook is a bargain right now, going in the 2nd round. I can make a case for him as the 4th safest running back and maybe the 9th safest player overall. That's how we use this ADP data, folks. We use the cost of acquisition and compare it to our metrics. The guys that have a bargain here with the professor's data come in as minuses. Look at Cam Scatabo.
Yeah, I love him.
Cam Scatabo, even on my data, which penalizes 2nd-year guys, okay? it says the way I look at the data, because I'm looking at a 2-year window on data, not just a one, it severely penalizes guys because they haven't played their second year yet.
Right.
Okay. And some of that is because I understand when we go from rookie season to second season, there can be quite a bit of variance in the data. That's what the data tells us. And it's worse at some positions versus others. But he's a guy that I think is a safer bet than some of the other guys that are being drafted near him or before him. But the key in those first 3 rounds is I don't want question marks. So when I see Gibbs, my first thought is, do they bring in a back better than Montgomery, younger than Montgomery, to share the backfield with him? There's a possibility. Christian McCaffrey, another year older. That concerns me in the first round. A. Shane already mentioned. Jonathan Taylor, is Daniel Jones coming back? Taylor tailed off at the end with less quarterback play. Ashton Gianti, we already talked about him. Omarion Hampton, we did. We talk about his concerns. James Cook, I'm not concerned at the situation there. Even with a coaching change, he's got his old offensive coordinator that really leaned into him as a player as the head coach now. Chase Brown, I'm not worried about. Barkley is an interesting one because he's priced at 10th best right now.
That's a little high for my taste.
It is a little high for my taste, but when I look at the 2-year window, he's my number 10 ranked guy.
Yep.
But he's another year older.
Yep.
I start getting worried. Josh Jacobs is, I think, priced right.
Yep.
He was my 8th guy, and he's priced at 12. So he's a little bit of a bargain in my data, and not so bad on the com score that he isn't valuable. Bucky Irving is a big question mark. I don't know how they're going to handle that situation at running back.
He's a plus 10. That worries me.
He's very worrisome.
If I've got him or Henry,
I'm probably leaning.
Taking Henry.
I'm probably and Derrick Henry's got that question mark of another year older, but we're not seeing a drop off in his data at all. Breece Hall's a question mark, but he's coming in the 4th round. Guys that are coming in the 4th round and later, they are definitely going to have question marks. But that's why I like Scatabo. I think there's fewer question marks on him. And we're all the way down to the 6th round, early part of the 6th round, until we get to DeAndre Swift.
Who's a bargain?
Swift is a huge bargain.
Yep.
He's my number 12 ranked running back right now. And that's
you would get in as a minus 12. I'm giving him minus 14. So you and I both, our metrics are both saying there is an ADP bargain here.
Yes, and I had Scatabo ranked number 16, and my data penalizes rookies. So
and mine doesn't.
Yours doesn't. So when I look at that and I see a guy who was a rookie last year coming in with a 16, I'm thinking he's like an 11. Yeah. That's a huge bargain. But that's how we look at this data, folks.
And Dennis, before we leave, I know we're trying to keep this tight. Folks, remember Dennis's better than zero theorem says for us to back up these guys, down the road. So if we take a Derrick Henry, we get, I don't know, Ali, or I don't even know who's going to be, but you want to shop later if you have to take him or whoever, or Barkley or whoever. You don't want to leave yourself out there. I'm not sure you have to worry about Bijan, A. Shane, tailor. I mean, if I did grab Gibbs, I would in Montgomery staying, I'd want to grab him to play them both because there was some times where both paid off for you. But A Shane, you're thinking right or somebody else. So, folks, this is just one page of the book, and that's all we're focused on. This is not the end, Dennis. This is the beginning of our thinking. Folks, you cannot lock in your opinions in February, right? You can't do it. Things are going to shift. But this is just showing you the method, but with the better than zero. And Dennis has talked about this in the Science of Fantasy. We've got articles. He's talked about his drafting strategy, his MVP. There's my comp stuff. You need to go review now so you're ready, by the summer. Practice, review, do a little best ball, get your feathers all dusted off and get ready to roll. So that's what we hope you do by this stuff is we want you to be successful, but we want you to learn a little bit about the scientific method and how we test these data and use this for our advantage next year. So next year at this time, I'll have this February, right? And I'll look at next year's February and we'll say, hey, what's going on with running backs? Was there something, what did we learn in 2026 that will help us for 2027? But if you don't put it on paper, you're going to forget. And if you don't have a diary, you're going to forget. So get yourself hooked up, read our stuff, become one with this, right? You party after you collect that check in January. That's when you party. Okay. You don't party beforehand. Okay. Again, you give out the old cheap bum whiskey to all your friends in your home league, get them all soused up and get them going there. That is legitimate. That's good play. That is good sportsmanship down here in the South. Hit them with that moonshine.
Great advice from the professor.
Okay.
Head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. You can check out a lot of the old articles and some new because we will continue to have new stuff each and every week. I just posted my
Yes.
article of
So way
looking
too early.
way too early. Looking at the four metrics, though, and getting an idea of who is the consensus players that are the safer. The higher they are up in my rankings, the safer they are because they have done this at a good level for the last 2 years. Check out all the professors' articles and videos as well, folks. He gives such great lesson plans. And head on back here next week for another edition of the Data Lab.